Hey, it's Bobby Owsinski here. If you've been trying to keep up with the music business lately, you already know how fast things are moving. Companies that once looked rock solid are suddenly unstable. Private equity keeps circling pro audio. Streaming platforms are redefining what counts, and the dream of going viral turns out to be a lot more complicated than most people think. In this episode, I'm breaking down the latest music business and production news, what's happening, why it matters, and most importantly, what it means to you. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what's really behind headlines like Native Instruments filing for insolvency, why viral success is far rarer than we're led to believe, how YouTube is quietly becoming even more powerful, and what new loudness laws could mean for streaming and mixers alike. This isn't about hype. It's about connecting the dots so you can see where the industry is actually heading, not where the noise is pointing. If you care about staying relevant, informed, and ahead of the curve in today's music business, you're in the right place. Stick around. I'm Bobby Owsinski, and this is the Inner Circle Podcast. Welcome to the latest episode. You've been asking for more of these news updates, so I'm here to accommodate. We're going to start here. Native Instruments filed for insolvency. What does that mean? Well, first of all, we have to look at Native Instruments and the companies that are involved in that holding company now. Yes, you have Native Instruments, the developer and manufacturer, but now they also own Isotope, Plugin Alliance, and Brainworks. So there's a little bit of a backstory here. Native Instruments was purchased by Francisco Partners in 2021. If you remember, 2021 was the height of COVID, and everybody that was doing something online, every manufacturer, every person that was trying to sell something, was having a gangbuster year, mostly because everybody was at home and didn't have anything to do, so they were always online. So Native Instruments was really cooking at the time. Francisco Partners bought in, thinking that this was going to last. And of course it didn't. So when the numbers started to go down, Francisco Partners decided they wanted to get out of the business. Now, also back up here, Francisco Partners is a private equity company, which you've heard me rant about this before. I think it's, really bad for the country and really bad for economies in general. And this is brought on by the fact that as soon as the purchase happened, customers began to complain about the service going downhill and products going stale and more of a focus on pricing and packages rather than new products, about what happens all the time. So Francisco Partners, with all the capital they have, billions of dollars, instead of just putting more money into NI, what they try to do is sell it instead to two other private equity companies, Bain Capital, and Bain Capital already has a history with Guitar Center, a negative history of Guitar Center, and Bridgeport Holdings. This was all going fine and well until the last minute when Bain backed out. So NI had no other choice at that point but to enter preliminary insolvency. So for now, all the products continue to work, but don't expect any major updates or new products until all this gets sorted out. And two things can happen. The company can get restructured and basically go back to the way it was. Usually what happens is they try to cut costs, so there are people that are laid off, etc. Or the other thing that could happen is parts of this company, which include Isotope and Plugin Alliance, they can be sold off. As I've said before, private equity is just another piece of financial engineering that really doesn't do anything for end users. It only serves the people that have full pockets already. And those are the stockholders. That's all they care about. They care about making money for their investors. They don't care about the end users. We'd be a lot better off if they didn't exist at all. So let's go another step down the private equity path for audio. Audiotonics, another holding company, announced that it was going to acquire microphone companies DPA, Wisecom, and Austrian Audio. Now keep in mind that Audiotronics already owns Allen & Heath, Calrec, Digico, Fourier Audio, Harrison Audio, JH Audio, Klang Technologies, Slate Digital, Solid State Logic, Sonable, and Sound Devices. To their credit, they haven't changed those companies all that much. We haven't noticed too much of a deterioration in product or services. Good for them. I'm also happy about Austrian Audio at this point because this used to be AKG, and I think 17 or 19 of them, when the AKG was shut down by Harman, and again, case of Harman buying a company and then letting it, really die. So the employees bought all the assets they could and restarted as Austrian Audio. And they've really done a great job with really good new products that are worthy successors to AKG products. So I'm happy for them if they cashed out. Good for you guys. The problem here, again, is that Audiotonics, on the surface, it sounds like they're just a holding company for audio. Not the case, though. They're owned by Aridean and PAI Partners. And between them, there's basically $200 billion worth of assets and roughly 1,700 clients, companies that they own. They could care less about these small little audio companies. What I'm afraid of at some point, they're going to look and say, oh, we're not making enough money. Let's consolidate everybody into one company. Let's do some products that are consumer oriented instead of professional audio. There's a lot of ways that this could go bad. So far, it hasn't. So far, Audiotonics has been a really good holding company. They haven't asked, to my knowledge, too much of the underlying companies, and I think that's a good thing for everybody, and let's keep our fingers crossed that that's going to happen. In another acquisition, Norman's Rare Guitars was bought by TNAG Global. Now, Norman's Rare Guitars has been around since 1975. It's the place on the West Coast for vintage instruments. And the amount of knowledge that Norman Harris, the owner, has is astounding in this area. If you ever see a movie or television shows coming out of Hollywood, the guitars they're using most likely came from Norman's that they rented. So this place has been around forever and ever. If you want a really good vintage guitar, that's where you go. You know you can get something that's authentic, that they know that they're talking about. Norman is doing what a lot of founders do, though. After a while, you begin to think, well, I'm getting kind of older. Maybe there's something else that I could do. Maybe it's time to cash out. So TNAG Global, which also owns Cotton Music Center in Nashville and Carter Vintage Guitars, which are very highly thought of, they came in to buy Norman's. In this case, I think it's a really good thing. It's not really a private equity company that's buying everybody out and just looking to make money. These people seem to be protectors of the vintage thought process, just the vintage case of going on. So I think in this case, it's a good idea, and it's probably a very good thing that's happening. So good for you, Norman, and good for you, TNAG Global. Have you ever noticed that mixing vocals is often the hardest part of getting a track to sound right? You boost, you compress, you add effects, and it still doesn't feel professional. So, to make it easier, I put together a simple mini course on vocal mixing that walks you through the exact steps to get the vocals sounding clear and upfront. If you're interested, scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to today's conversation. Let's talk about going viral. One of the things that everybody always wants with their streams, with their videos, you always hope that something's going to go viral, that it starts today, you have 8 views, and tomorrow you have 8,000 or 800,000. That's kind of what we're hoping for all the time. But it turns out there's been a study by a company called Duetti, and they found out that there's only a 1.1% chance of that ever happening. So what does viral actually mean? You can't do the study unless you know this. And as far as Duetti is concerned, that's if a stream was increased by 5 times within a month. So you start out with 1,000, it's 5,000 by the end of the month. Most people don't think of virality that way. They think of 100 times or more. But in this case, it's 5 times, which makes the whole thing even a little scarier when you think about it. And they've gone on a little deeper into this, and they found that only 0.1% of tracks sustained any streams past 6 months. Again, this isn't all artists. These are artists that are making money that are releasing this stuff. And it could be anywhere from $100 a year to $350K. These are people that are making some money. The other thing I found that tracks that grow slower over time are 60% more likely to build what they call durable catalog. And durable catalog is this is a song or a video that's going to go on for some time. People are going to like it over a period of time. It's not just going to come and go. If you have something that has a very rapid growth, it's very likely it'll have a limited longevity, according to the study. It also found that artists who grow on YouTube first are 60% more likely to develop this durable catalog than those who begin on another platform. So this makes me think that, confirms what everybody kind of knows, that YouTube is a pretty good place to start. It's a pretty good place to concentrate on. And it's not so much how good the video is or how great the song is. It's a combination of everything. And it's definitely worth paying more attention. If you don't pay any attention to it now, you should probably do that. Speaking of YouTube, YouTube videos, video views, the video view count, the stream count, they no longer count on Billboard charts. So let's back up for a second. It used to be on the Billboard charts, a sale was a sale. It was a CD sale, it was a vinyl sale, it was a cassette sale. It was a sale, and it was what pushed the charts. You had a lot of sales, you're higher in the charts. Makes sense. But when it comes to streams, you can't really do that. So what would happen is they thought that maybe the best way to do this is to weight a stream. So if someone was on the paid tier, for instance, their stream would be worth more than if it was on the ad-supported tier. And the way they did it is 1,500 paid streams counted as one sale. Well, it turns out that what YouTube really wanted was they wanted a one-to-one ratio. So in other words, it didn't matter to them whether it was on the ad-supported tier or if it was on the paid tier. They wanted, if someone watched, it was equal to a view, and Billboard said no. What they really wanted, and they changed this ratio at the beginning of the year, 1,000 paid streams equaled one album sale, and 2,500 ad-supported streams equaled one album sale. And that seems reasonable, but YouTube wanted one-to-one. No matter what tier, it counted as a sale. And Billboard said no. As a result, YouTube pulled all the data. Pretty amazing, huh? Now, this might not mean too much. The reason why is Billboard charts don't mean too much to most artists these days, unless you're kind of in the major label ecosystem. It's more of a scorecard for major labels to keep track of things. And indie artists, of course, don't care because they don't chart all that much. So they would be a lot happier with YouTube views, a lot more YouTube views than charting. And the thing about it is, if the YouTube views aren't counted on the Billboard charts, then the Billboard charts mean even less than they did before. So I don't expect this to be worked out. I expect this to go on. And really, again, when it comes down to an indie artist or an artist that's not signed to a major label, the fact of the matter is, you really don't care about that stuff. It really doesn't matter to you. You're not in that world. What does it matter? There are indie artists that are making a really good living. I mean, really good living without being in the major label ecosystem. And therefore, the charts don't mean much. Now, YouTube chart or Spotify chart means a whole lot more than the Billboard chart. So that being said, come back to YouTube again. It's worth paying attention to. This year was the 75th anniversary of the Telecaster. Yes, the Fender Telecaster. It was originally called the Broadcaster, but it turns out that Gretsch already owned the name, so it was only a Broadcaster for a little while and then became a Telecaster. The Telecaster was the first mass-produced electric guitar. And the reason for that was Leo Fender was a radio repairman. He wasn't a luthier. So for him, he wanted to make something that was easy to put together, easy to manufacture. So he made this modular system. It was an ash body. Why did he choose ash? Well, it wasn't because it sounded good. Mm, Sometimes people really love that, and sometimes they don't, but it was because ash was very easy to get and relatively cheap at the time. He used a bolt-on maple neck. Well, because it's easy to assemble. The electronics could be assembled and repaired very quickly. If something broke, you could easily fix it. For instance, if a neck warped, you didn't need a new guitar. You just swapped it for another one. The bridge plate was stamped metal. The pickguard was simple. So the Telecaster has lasted for 75 years, and multiple generations have played it and loved it. I've always said that real men and women play Telecasters because it's not an easy instrument. It doesn't fit very well to your body like the Stratocaster would some years later. Stratocaster just fits and feels good. Telecaster, you have to struggle with a little bit, and it has the type of tone that it might not work for everybody, and it doesn't. That being said, it cuts through a mix, and it works in places that other guitars do not. So it's lasted for 75 years for a reason. It's still a great guitar. It continues to evolve, and there are so many different variations on it these days. I don't even know how many, but there's something for everybody. So it's worth actually looking at a Telecaster if you don't have one. Let's talk about LUFS. Every time I bring this up, there's a lot of confusion, and I guess there should be because people misinterpret what it's for. LUFS, what does it stand for? Loudness units relative to full scale. It's a measure of loudness over a period of time. So it was originally made for television. If a television program is 30 minutes, then it's the loudness, the average of the loudness over that 30 minutes. If it's a 3-minute song, it's the average of the loudness over 3 minutes. This was all brought about in 2010. People were complaining about when they watched television, the commercials were way louder than the program, and they'd have to either get up and change the volume or use their remote. And there was a lot of complaints about that. The reason why advertisers figured out if they compressed the heck out of their commercial, it would be louder and it would really jump out, which they wanted. But there's so many complaints that Congress actually passed the Calm Act in 2012, and it mandated that all program broadcasted by a network couldn't be louder than minus 24 LUFS, which is pretty low, by the way. If a program would exceed that, that could cause a television network to lose their broadcast license. That's not something that anybody wants because they pay millions of dollars for those broadcast licenses, so they're very, very diligent about watching the levels. And if you submit something to a network that's not within that spec, they'll kick it back. They'll just make you do it again until you get it right. So this works for broadcast really well, but the problem is today, I think it's at least more than 50% of people consume most of their watching hours, their video watching hours, via streams, not via broadcast. And guess what? The Calm Act does not apply to that. So now what we have is same thing as happened before, where you switch from one streaming network to another, and the level's a little bit different. Program to program, it's different. If there's commercials, you're on an ad-supported tier, you have the same problem. And what really happens here is, again, people are complaining. So in California, there are so many people complaining that the legislators passed SB 576 in October. And what that does, it institutes a statewide version of the Calm Act, and it's aimed just at video streamers. It's not a federal law. But if you want to broadcast If you want to stream into California, you have to abide by it, which basically means that it's a federal law anyway. Now, California is not the only one who's passed this. New Jersey did as well most recently. If you're a consumer of Netflix or Prime Video or YouTube or any other streaming service, you can rejoice that finally there's going to be some level sanity. That's going to be the same as we have in broadcast programming. If you're a mixer, however, it's worth noting, but it's not likely to affect you at all. And here's where the misconceptions come in. There's only one mixer where this matters. It's the very last one that's doing the mix before it goes to the network. It doesn't matter for anybody else. So you can mix to whatever level you want, and there's only one mixer where it matters, and that's the last mixer in the chain. It's kind of the same, well, it is the same exactly if you're sending something to a streaming service, Spotify, Apple Music, any of those. Doesn't matter what the level is, they re-encode it anyway. So you can be really diligent and try to get it to minus 16 or minus 14 LUFS, and they re-encode it. Doesn't matter. So the best thing you can do is just make it as good sounding as possible and give it more dynamic range. Don't squash it so much, and it's going to sound great. So I hope you enjoyed this music news update. Thanks for being part of my inner circle. There are a lot of great guests coming up in the next few episodes, so keep your eye out for them. And once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you watching, you listening all the time, you participating, you sending me suggestions and questions, and thank you for letting me into your world. Thanks for listening and being in my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@bobbyowsinski.com. You can also learn all about the latest in music, audio, and production news, and find out about openings for my latest online classes at bobbyowsinski.com. This is Bobby Owsinski. I will see you next time.